All right, this is my presentation on the sanctity of life, and I wanted to propose a question of not necessarily specifically the topic of abortion or something like that, or mercy killing, but I wanted to ask at the root of the question, how sacred is your life? First, what's the choice? You have a parent to a child, whether it's a born or unborn child, a soldier or the president. Do they get to choose who dies in someone from the Middle East or in a war or whoever it may be? Does the child get to choose their parent's life or death when the parent is 90 years old and can't take care of themselves? Or a doctor to a patient, can they mercy kill them by unplugging them? Or can a patient ask for that? Is that ethical? Is that something that's appropriate? And to start off, we have to define. We have to figure out what, we have to have some kind of baseline. The Oxford Dictionary says killing is an act of causing death, especially deliberately. Murder is the unlawful, premeditated killing of one human being by another. And then self-defense is the defense of one's person or interest, especially through the use of physical force, which is permitted in certain cases as an answer to a charge of violent crime. The specific difference here is either killing or murder, and how one is unlawful. Both would be unlawful. It's unlawful and it's premeditated. So killing actually doesn't have unlawful in the definition, but you have to kill someone in order to murder them is where the mix-up happens. Self-defense being that you're protecting something, whether it's yours, your person, your belongings, or someone else and their person or their belongings. Now, the power. Since the dawn of time, we've been having the power of choice. Adam and Eve, on the picture on the left, they have the power of choice whether to eat the fruit or not. And now we can see that we still have the power of choice. On the right is a picture of two soldiers with a caption, "No end in sight," and that there's going to be this kind of choice for the rest of time until Jesus comes back, that there's always going to be some kind of war, something going on. And what's powerful about this choice is that this choice is what allows us to love God truly, because you can't truly love something if you don't have a choice to. Then you're just a robot, and it's not true, genuine love. Now, where's your heart? That's the big question. Where are you and where's your heart? 1 Samuel 16:7 talks about how God doesn't look at someone's height or their looks, and he looks at their heart. Whereas Jeremiah 17:9 says every desire of our heart is deceitful. That the inclination of our life is sin. And that's since Adam and Eve that we've lived in sin and we're born into sin. That's why Jesus had to have a virgin birth, so that he would be perfectly God as well as being human. So it's this kind of contradictory circumstance where God's looking at your heart and you can have the best intentions ever, and God appreciates that and he likes that, but there's also this constant like you're on a rope and you're being pulled back into sin, and no matter how far you go or how much you want to go the other way, that there's this rope constantly dragging you back and trying to take hold of you. And if you were to trip up, all of a sudden you can't run against this rope. You're getting dragged with nothing able to do. And that's where it gets so difficult, and why people feel like they make 2 steps forward and 1 step back is because of this dragging. The question is, why are you? That's where you start to see where how your own life is sacred. How do you view yourself? God paid the highest price for you. Something is only worth what you're willing to pay for it, and Jesus' life was paid for you. His own one and only Son, part of him was paid for you. That's how God sees you, but how do you see you? There's a guy in 1830 who was pardoned by Andrew Jackson for robbing a bank. He was going to hang because, it was 1830, and he's going to hang, and Andrew Jackson says, okay, I'm pardoning you. His buddy had already got hung, and he said, no, thank you. And it all went all the way up to the Supreme Court of, can you actually deny a presidential pardon? And the answer was yes, and they hung him. When the court case was finished, they hung him, and you can see that he obviously didn't think that his life was worth what Jesus paid for it. If he would have thought that, then he wouldn't have wanted to hang. The essence of the situation here is, how do you view yourself? And as a Christian, you can view yourself and others as that highest price, that Jesus died for your sins. But this is why it's such a difficult situation, is when you aren't a Christian, there's a very case-by-case situational dilemma here, where you see a soldier your view might be murder, that he's murdering the enemy, where as a Christian would see that he's valuing his life and he's valuing his country's lives, and where you can also be a non-Christian and still have the same values, but we believe in God being the moral compass, and without that moral compass, you really can't decide. If you go all the way back to choice, the parent to child, we believe that the parent is lawfully in charge of the child, but every life, no matter what, whether it's parent to child, a soldier, president, how their life matters. Does the president matter more? Does the child now matter more than the parent because the parent can't take care of themselves? Does the doctor matter more than a patient? Does the patient's family matter more than the patient? Does the patient matter more than the doctor and their decision on what they think should happen to them? At the end of the discussion, what matters is that God has woken you up today, and God has woken the other person up today. And you don't have any business taking away their life unless they are trying to take away someone else's. Even if they're trying to take away someone's freedoms, that's not the same as taking away their life. And I would venture to say you still don't have the right to take away the evil person, per se, who's taking away someone else's freedom. God has ordained them to still be living, and as soon as you go to take away someone else's life, you are not saying that God is the author and finisher of our lives, but you're saying that you are that you're the finisher. That God might have authored their life to start and to keep moving, but you're going to be the finisher. And that's not, anytime you try to take God's position, that's not a good spot to be in. So I hope you learned something at the end of this video, and thanks for watching.